Hello and welcome back to another edition of Viper Bites presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group as we continue our little series here of the top fantasy assets for each and every team in the National Football League. We are going through all 32 teams, just like you should be going through fantasypoints.com right now and using promo code Vipers22 to save yourself 10% off that subscription. One of those best bang for your buck websites out there right now, a one-stop shop for all your fantasy football needs. Now, you're not here to listen to me talk. Well, actually, technically you are. So let's dive right in to the Los Angeles Rams, the Super Bowl champions, starting with Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 4, currently in all Dynasty formats there. Kupp's 2021 season was arguably the greatest ever by a wide receiver. It's certainly up there with the 1987 Jerry Rice season, the 2007 Randy Moss season, and the 2012 Calvin Johnson season. Kupp became just the 4th wide receiver to win the Triple Crown after posting 1,947 yards, 16 touchdowns, 146 receptions, and 191 targets. How does anyone get 191 targets? How do you let a guy get 191 targets? Seriously, I'm asking this. You know he's getting the ball. Why are you letting him get it? You know what? I digress. Now, I'm not sure there's anything more that Cooper Kupp can do. When you are receiving more than 31% of a target share and averaging more than 4 fantasy points per game, more than the next closest wide receiver, then you have become probably the most valuable fantasy asset, even at the age of 29. While regression is expected to happen, Kupp should remain as a top 3 fantasy wide receiver next season. If you take 25% of his production from last season away, his 309.9 fantasy points would trail only Devontae Adams and Deebo Samuel, and he would still have more fantasy points than what Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson had a season ago. Now, turning our attention to the running back position, you got Cam Akers currently as the RB13 in Dynasty. Akers returned to action after rupturing his Achilles. The recovery happened about 6 months sooner than anyone had predicted. There was no way he was coming back 6 months. Seriously, think about how he had to do this. Will Fuller is still out with a finger injury from like 2020. Now, Akers, he may be a little bit disappointed with what that end result was and his performance in the Super Bowl. Now, a full year removed, what can we expect? Well, we're still not too sure. No one has really come all the way back after rupturing their Achilles, and certainly no one has got on the field as quickly as he has. It will be an interesting case study, and if you're scared off by his injury, you should be able to find a league mate who's just intrigued enough to take a risk on him, especially on this comeback, because, hey, there's plenty of hype surrounding this comeback. One thing is for certain. When Akers returned, he received all the touches, and he could handle. And he still wasn't 100%. He was literally still getting 90% of the carries, 90% of the snaps in Los Angeles upon his return. One player who's making his debut with the Los Angeles Rams this season is wide receiver Allen Robinson. With Odell Beckham Jr. not likely to return until after Christmas, if he does come back to Los Angeles, and Robert Woods now in Tennessee, there are roughly 166 vacated targets and 1,492 unaccounted for air yards waiting to be picked up. The list of quarterbacks that Robinson has had to endure throughout his career is a real who's who of futility. From Blake Bortles and Nick Foles to Mitch Trubisky, Matt McGloin, Christian Hackenberg, and Chad Henne, he has been able to overcome poor quarterback play at every turn. That was until Justin Fields happened in 2021, in which he was held to 7.2 fantasy points per game, 1.13 yards per route run. Definitely not good. But in 2022, it is a new year, and Matthew Stafford is a new quarterback. A different quarterback, a veteran quarterback who's not afraid to let it rip. And some of the numbers that have me feeling pretty good about Robinson's bounce back ability, 79% versus zone coverage back in 2020, while having success not only against man coverage, but press coverage as well. Now, speaking of that gunslinger there, Matthew Stafford, 1 year removed from Detroit, and Matthew Stafford now has that ring. Question is, what can Matthew Stafford do for an encore? After tossing the 3rd most yards last season while completing 67.3% of his passes and being one of just 2 quarterbacks to throw for more than 40 touchdowns, Cooper Kupp, he's still there. We know Allen Robinson is now there looking for that bounce back season. Heck, Odell Beckham Jr., he may return around Christmas time. With another year to grasp the McVay offense there, and maybe a few more Breakfast Club type meetings with Cooper Kupp, Stafford will be looking to reduce and limit the interceptions after throwing 17 of them last season. One of the last true gunslingers out there still. It really shouldn't surprise anybody that he threw for 18 passes of greater than 40 yards last season, another stat in which he led all signal callers. If teams try to disrupt the Rams' offense by blitzing Stafford, they may find their efforts to become futile, as Stafford has thrown for the third most passing yards, 2,680, versus the blitz since 2020. And finally, to round out our fantasy five here for the Los Angeles Rams, let's turn our attention to the tight end position here in Tyler Higby. Now, I know what you're saying. We know the tight end position is what it is. Both Aaron Donald, he's 31. Bobby Wagner is 32. Would have been solid selections here if we wanted to go the IDP route. I'm still not sure that Higby is a more valuable fantasy asset than either one of them. However, we have seen this tight end landscape in the past few seasons, and it has not been fantasy friendly. One thing that Higby does have going for him is that he has been consistent. In 2021, his consistency rating was 73% while recording 11 clutch games, according to Bob Lung's consistency guide there. Right now, Higby is coming off the board somewhere between that 18 to 21 range after finishing as the tight end 13 last season, after posting 61 receptions, 560 yards, and averaging 9.3 fantasy points per game, not to mention 9.2 yards per reception. That's a pretty solid season there. If Higby is fully recovered from that post-Super Bowl operation, then you should see him have another 90% plus snap count in this Rams offense. And if you're on the field from this Rams offense, there's a chance you have to produce in a big way. With that saying, if you want to produce in your fantasy leagues in a big way, head to fantasypoints.com, use promo code Vipers22 and get 10% off that subscription today. And if you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever that podcasting platform may be, take a second, rate and review us. And as always, if you're watching us right here on the Vipers Network, on the YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and make sure those notifications are turned all the way up because we got new content coming at you daily you do not want to miss, and we will see you next time. Take care.